Those aliens at Dante's really meant business. Oh, I hope they're okay. I'm glad I got out of there with my brilliant disguise of changing my t-shirt and switching to jeans instead of khakis. I hope they didn't follow me here. Oh. Welcome to Way or No Way, where we put the comic back in comic books. And today, I'm going to be covering a very controversial issue. No, not that one. Not that one. What do you think, I am suicidal? The issue I'm covering is going to be the resurrection of Jason Todd, aka the Scrappy-Doo of the Batman family.
For those not familiar, Jason Todd was the second person to carry the name of Robin. Debuting in Batman number 387 back in 1983, Jason Todd was a strawberry blonde circus performer whose parents, not unlike Dick Grayson's, had also been murdered by a criminal. Soon after, Jason was taken under Batman's wing. Then he dyed his hair black, removing virtually all distinguishing features from Dick Grayson except for the occasional temper tantrum. Then Crisis on Infinite Earths rolls around, and among the many changes from that epic was that Jason Todd was a street urchin whom Batman caught trying to carjack the Batmobile. Personally, I gotta say, that takes balls. Batman makes him Robin and turns into a disaster. Jason, post-Crisis, is an angry, douchey little turd who uses excessive force and has an anger management problem stemming from his lack of parental guidance.
Long story short, he just wasn't working out and the fans hated him. So much so that Denny O'Neil, the main Batman writer at the time, decided to take the lead from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns and have Jason Todd bumped off. Wanting to interact with the fans, and I suppose wanting to see just how much the fans hated him, they set up a 900 number for people to call in and cast their vote. Surprisingly enough, out of 10,000 votes, only 51% of them voted that Jason Todd die. I think what I take from that is that they didn't really want him to die so much as that they just didn't want him to be Robin anymore.
Well, the fans got their wish, and Jason Todd was unceremoniously beaten to within an inch of his life by the Joker. That very last inch was blown to smithereens, however, when the place Joker left him to die in was blown up by a time bomb. Recently, it was revealed that Jason Todd had indeed returned from the dead, and disguised himself as a vigilante named the Red Hood. The controversy surrounding Todd's return is palpable enough, but what kicked it into WTF mode was the revelation of how Jason came back to life.
Which leads to today's issue. Within these pages are the answers to Jason Todd's resurrection. They're not necessarily good answers.
We open our comic to omniscient narration. He is Jason Todd. Make no mistake, it is him.
I have the birthmark to prove it.
And although his actions are so single of purpose, his goals, be they dark or just, have been clearly stated in both word and action. He wants to be the next judge on American Idol so bad he can taste it. The means, the manner, the miracle of his return is still a mystery. Until now.
Although afterwards you'll wish they were still a mystery.
We go through the Cliff Notes version of Jason's death, the woman in the scene being Jason's mother, who had delivered Jason into the hands of the Joker. Yeah, he never had a chance, did he? It begins where it ended, with pain dealt from a familiar face, a hero coming to the rescue, but this time, unlike the many times before, he failed. And the hero whose quest was built upon tragedy, who sought vengeance to quell the pain of grief, found himself once again face to face with death. A death of a partner.
Everyone else has done that joke to death. Why should I resuscitate it just so I can kill it again? Fine.
The ambiguously gay duo.
Happy?
A death of a friend. A death in the family. Get it? Do you get it yet? Judd wants to make sure you get the nice little name drop there, because you see, Jason Todd's death was in a story arc called Death in the Family. See what he did there? Is it obvious enough for you yet? Is it? Is it? Is it? Anyway. Anyway, we cut to the lair of Tothamon, the wizard from Conan the Destroyer. I'm just kidding. It's a crystal paradise on the outskirts of reality. From within, we have our douche ex machina, Superboy Prime. For those not familiar, Superboy Prime was a teenager named Clark Kent from Earth Prime, aka Our World. In a one-shot issue, he gained Kryptonian abilities and helped Superman fight off aliens. But when the Crisis on Infinite Earths rolls around, his world, i.e. Our World, was completely obliterated by a wave of antimatter.
But don't let the government find out you know. Or... Oh my god! They found me!
After saving existence, Superboy Prime, along with an elderly Superman, an even more elderly Lois Lane, and an alternate Lex Luthor named Alexander, disappear into a heavenly paradise where all except for Lois go absolutely guano. Anyway, for reasons too long and idiotic to explain in this review, Superboy Prime punches the walls of reality and revives not only Jason Todd, but affects the continuity of characters like the Doom Patrol, Donna Troy, and Hawkman. We get a brief glimpse of what might have been as Batman shouts that Jason is alive. We get narration that Jason wasn't really supposed to die.
Yes, he was. The creator just wanted to make absolutely sure that that's what the fans wanted too. They did.
But in the world we knew, he was lost. For a while. That is, until time decided to set things right. Time didn't decide anything. A whiny emo demigod cosplaying as Superboy basically punched time and space in the nuts and made random changes. He had no concept he'd be setting things right or that they were wrong to begin with, other than being manipulated by Alex Luthor. He had no frickin' idea that he was even capable of anything like retcon punch. Time ripples into purple and regenerates Jason's body to the point at which he died, and he wakes up in his coffin 6 months after his death. Jason begins to gasp and cry out for Batman, but his bat training takes over and he somehow escapes the coffin. He was not buried in costume. On his person are no keepsakes of... Is he trying to push out the side of the coffin? Really? Jason Todd uses his belt buckle to dig through the coffin and break out. Batman had placed 3 sensors in the coffin. Unfortunately for all, they were designed to go off if someone broke in, not if someone broke out.
Give me a couple more minutes and I'll explain in detail why this whole sequence is a stinking, blazing bag of fail. Bear with me, please.
Jason walks a miraculous 12.5 miles until he is found by a passing car. They take him to a hospital where he falls into a coma. 2 detectives go over Jason's injuries. So this kid was beaten with some kind of metal pipe. Cracked his skull, shattered his sternum, collapsed a lung, about 40 other fractures, blown up, then buried?
Folks, I'm going to stop reading the comic at this point and explain to you why this is, even by comic book standards, crap. First of all, he could barely walk or stand and had little to no energy when he was killed. I took the time to read the original story in which this was based. Jason couldn't even support his own body weight. He had to be carried and then set down like a sack of potatoes. And adding on top of that, he got blown to smithereens. Yet somehow this person not only crawled out of a grave, something very few normal people can do at peak physical strength, but he does it while suffering from being beaten near unto death with a crowbar.
This is impossible in a myriad of ways. First, there's no air in the coffin. He should have asphyxiated immediately. Not to mention, even if there was somehow a magical air pocket that was perfectly preserved and didn't grow stale from the stench of his own decay, he couldn't f***ing breathe it anyway because his lungs had shut the f*** down! Second, his brain is hemorrhaging, which means he should be unconscious or suffering a stroke about that time. Third, you know what flat piece of bone holds your ribcage together? That's called your sternum. Jason's was shattered. With a shattered sternum, you can't take pressure on your chest. What amounts to half ton of dirt would provide lots of it. Even if he had broken through the wood, the dirt would have smothered him or crushed his sternum completely. That's not adding the 40 other fractures he sustained. Jason Todd shouldn't have the strength to not only break through the coffin lid, but crawl through 6 feet of crumbling earth around him.
Fourth, I don't give a crap if he's trained by Batman. There's no physical way that a person who has been bludgeoned into a bloody bag of meat and bones wrapped in tights is going to be able to escape from being buried alive, especially when they've been dead for 6 frickin' months. Even if we give the comic the benefit of the doubt and say that Jason Todd, shattered sternum, bleeding brain, collapsed lung, fractured all over, through some miracle, escaped the grave, how would Batman not know? He's, quote, the goddamn Batman. He lives in a world where death is a revolving door. You mean to tell me that he wouldn't be prepared for the possibility of Jason Todd reviving in his grave and breaking out? This is a man who created a split personality should his mind come under extreme psychological assault. This guy wrote detailed dossiers on how to defeat each member of the Justice League should they make some kind of, turn into a villain. Not to mention, what sensor wouldn't have gone off with Jason's escape? Pressure sensors would have noticed Jason's weight increasing by about a good couple hundred pounds, thanks to the dirt that would be piling into the frickin' coffin. Motion sensors would have noticed Jason's body climbing through the earth. There is no sensor he could have used that wouldn't have been detecting Jason Todd's escape. John Winnick, you absolutely, positively, 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt, fail!
They try to look Jason Todd up and run his prints, but surprise, surprise, they come up with zilch. They searched for a 10-mile radius from where he was found for anything resembling a grave or a hole. They didn't check the graveyard? They just assumed he was just buried within 10 miles? And they wonder why they get rings ran around them by a rich kid in a bat costume? We see 2 graveyard workers at the hole debating on whether or not they should fill the hole. You sure about this? I mean, grave robbers, Man, we don't know what happened here, and I don't want to know.
Neither do I. But I've got an app for that.
We cut to Huntington Convalescent Home 1 year later. Inside we see Jason Todd, or Patient John Doe, number 265, chronic vegetative state. Brain activity is of limited capacity, completely unresponsive to any and all stimuli. Severe brain damage is likely.
I already got my fair share reading One Moment in Time.
All this is true, but the will is sometimes stronger than the body, and instinct is sometimes stronger than thought. Instincts that tell him to run, instincts that tell him to escape. Okay, first of all, this is bullcrap! His body would be suffering from atrophy from lying in bed for a year, even with physical therapy. He's not Beatrix Kiddo, who sat in the back of a pickup truck willing her body to work after being in a coma. He's literally gone from dead to the world to John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell and Step Brothers, just walking around aimlessly. And how in the name of Stephen Hawking did no one notice this man who's been comatose walking right out the front door? Was there no security? Did the orderlies go on strike or something? Did every single employee in that place go drop Tootsie Rolls in the wishing well for about 15 minutes? Were they watching the Lost finale? The debut of the 11th Doctor? What? For the love of Heidegger, Batman training does not teach you how to walk out of a convalescent home when you're not brain dead! We see Jason basically reverting to his street urchin ways by stealing clothes and food and sleeping in alleyways. 1 year later. So to establish a timeline, he was dead for 6 months, then he got better, fell into a coma, then a year later, he walked out of a rest home, and then a year after that, we find him here. Well, at least Winnick's getting better at establishing timelines. Now if he can just not have the rest of his writing suck, that would be super. But instincts can only take you so far. Considering he's etched out a meager existence as a bum, he seems to be doing okay. But then a bully comes to move Jason out of his spot. You listening to me? Get your percentage $pound up. Other bums try to tell him to not pick on the kid who can swipe food and split it with everyone while the narration continues. Many things can jog a memory. A song, a smell, a taste, a touch, a sight just to round out all 5 senses, or in this case, pain.
I know I'll never forget the first night I saw Fahrenheit 9/11. Some nights, I can still smell the fail.
Quit whining! Exclamation point at $$. And for Jason, if you poke at his memory with a stick, you may find that those instincts of his, that lay like a sleeping dog, may wake.
And pee in your shoes.
The bully gets his ass handed to him by Jason, who somehow is still fit enough to perform complex gymnastics, outfight men twice his size despite being a bum with no access to regular exercise, let alone Batman-level exercise, and isn't eating the kind of foods that one would need to maintain that high level of fitness, and is also doing this through muscle memory. Logic is for pussies. The narration goes on to introduce a guy named Thomas Carbone, who in that very alley fought Jason Todd as Robin, and somehow, despite being a blackout drunk, remembers getting the crap kicked out of him 3 years ago. As it turns out, Carbone was calling an associate of Talia al Ghul, daughter of international terrorist and quasi-immortal Ra's al Ghul. He tells the associate that Robin is alive, and then Carbone gets killed in order to keep him quiet. His part, his name, his entire backstory is completely and utterly unnecessary. I'm sure this has been done before by much better writers, but that's my point. Now that must have been the ass-kicking of a lifetime if a drunk can remember Jason's moves being the exact same ones that were used on him 3 years ago. Not only that, he just happened to be in that alley, the very same alley he got beat up, where this happens. That's a lot of coincidence cocktail to drink. We cut to Talia telling Ra's that she wants to keep Jason Todd, and that no one knows he's alive. Ra's thinks she's wasting her time and resources since he's too brain damaged to tell them anything.
But not too damaged to go Rey Mysterio on your ass.
So Ra's tells his little girl she can keep her little pet Robin until he can recover enough to tell them what happened. Yet another year later, your pet has taken up too much of your time.
You said you would potty train him, but he still pees in my shoes.
Talia complains that Jason might still be thatched in the head, but he's gotten stronger and is still a hell of a fighter. But Ra's is adamant that Jason will remain an unthinking, emotionless shell. Talia recommends telling Bruce about Jason, but Ra's lets her know that he'd be all up their asses like a prostate exam from Edward Scissorhands. Ra's says he's going to send Jason away to be cared for somewhere else, and that the time has come again for Ra's to immerse himself in the Lazarus Pits. The Lazarus Pits, for those not familiar, are a pool of biological compound naturally formed in certain areas of the planet. These pools have the capability to briefly reanimate the dead, as well as render those currently living effectively immortal, provided they continually take dips in the pits. Think of it as the Fountain of Youth, only with the added bonus of extra years tacked onto your life. You also can become guano crazy. In a cavern, Ra's starts to enter the Lazarus Pit with bodyguards watching on. I know that despite your oath of obedience, the temptation of immortality beckons in front of you, my acolytes.
Immortality. And a bigger smile than that creepy Bob guy from the Insight commercials.
To enter the Lazarus Pit, however, will surely mean your death. Perhaps death? Perhaps more. And Talia proceeds to toss Jason into the boiling vat of what looks like orange smoothie with her half-naked father. The Al Ghouls are some really weird mofos. But apparently the dip brings Jason back to his senses and he regains his memory as well as the ability to control his bladder. Come with me, now! What? What's happening to me?
Why am I naked in a pool? And why aren't you?
A deceitful child has spurned her father!
Remember the last time we tried to help a mentally handicapped man with the Lazarus Pits? It didn't go well!
So Jason runs off with Talia, who helps him escape the compound. Jason is warned by Talia not to go and find Bruce, but to learn the truth before doing so. She tells him, "You remain unavenged." She then gives him a kiss, a duffel bag, and a shove off a conveniently placed cliff onto some jagged rocks. We cut to a hotel where Jason, via a motorcycle left by Talia, looks into the stuff she handed him in the duffel bag. Turns out, Talia has Jason's death certificate and some newspaper clippings. He remembered most of what happened. The search for his mother, her betrayal, the Joker, and his own murder.
Yeah, being hit in the head repeatedly by a maniacal clown kinda sticks with you.
Jason sees the news clippings that show Joker still alive and at large. Son of an $@$. The question will be forever asked. Was it the fires of the Lazarus Pit? Was it the life force of Ra's al Ghul? Or perhaps that mortal flesh can never truly return from the grave unsullied? Or was it a most surreal turn of disappointment? Love the fact they didn't end that massive run-on sentence with a question mark there. So he's pissed that Bruce didn't brutally murder the Joker, despite it going against everything he stands for and everything Bruce taught Jason as Robin. He then punches the laptop, which breaks the glass into shards, showing his life and death as Robin. See? He can make pictures in glass too! We cut to Jason going into montage mode. Learn what he learned, but making sure not to walk in his footsteps.
He always had a bigger shoe size than mine.
Taking help where it would come.
Red Light Productions were a frequent caller of his services.
And covering his tracks. Wait, didn't they already cover his grave up as a way of showing how unexplained occurrences have ways of covering themselves up? He gets wind of Hush and retcons himself into the plot of Hush, specifically to the point where Batman fights what he thinks is Jason Todd. But according to this issue, it turns out to actually be Jason, who was masquerading as Clayface, masquerading as Jason.
Everybody got that?
Apparently, Jason did the whole thing to see if Batman was still carrying a torch for him and had regrets about his death. Seeing none, he takes it to mean Batman didn't give a flying crap about his death, nor had any regrets at all about what happened.
Of course, it isn't like, he's had Jason's death thrown in his face numerous times, or has thought about it himself, and has had to force himself out of grieving because of the nature of his job. No! It's just that he didn't give a crap. So, basically, this is the reason Jason turns against Batman, instead of, talking to him about it. Seriously, does he really think Batman would be surprised to see someone coming back from the dead in his line of work?
The father had lost the son, and now the son had lost the father. His own mortality had become the wedge between them. No, your sheer stupidity in trusting Talia frickin' Al Ghul's the wedge, you dim-witted patach! And the last page of the comic shows Jason staring in front of a large board of newspaper clippings and focusing on one with Red Hood, one of the Joker's former aliases. He is Jason Todd. Make no mistake, it is him.
Make no mistake. This comic sucks! The art is okay if a little sketchy in some places, but the plot, while chronologically coherent, is absolutely god-awful. Jason Todd's resurrection by punching the walls of continuity is about as far-fetched and stupid as the devil going back in time to unlock a car door for a criminal so he can break up Spider-Man's wedding. Hey Judd, next time you want to bring someone back who's clearly dead, just ask Ed Brubaker to write it for you. He does a much better job than this. Verdict? No freaking way! What the hell? How did you find me?
We used our satellites to track your positioning. During our hunt for the one called Auric, we detected 3 life signs. When we confirmed only 2, we searched our security cameras to see that you had fled.
You videotape your conquests? Why?
In the event that a species would feebly attempt to rise against us, it would show them the futility of such an action. The ones called Dante and Auric had fled as you did, and we are currently unable to discern their location, but we will find them soon enough. In the meantime, I have been assigned the ignoble task of dispatching you.
Well, I hope you don't mind if I put up a fight.
You won't survive this either way, so it makes little difference to me. Where did you get that?
From someone who apparently thought I needed it. And they were right.
It doesn't matter. The day is ours.
This is for Dante's den, you ugly mother.
Remnac to recon. Align Annihilator blast to current location. Engage at will.
What did you do?
I told you you would not survive this. May whatever God you believe in have mercy on your soul. Blech.
Oh no. So much so that Denny O'Neil, the main Batman head writer at the time, decided, main Batman head writer?